This is JJ Humphrey back on Elephant in the Room. I've got a sick Bobby Cleveland who picked up some kind of Chinese virus while he was in Missouri down there on Branson. So, Bob, he may be coughing every now and then while we're talking. Bob, we started saying that we're going to start off every week with our pet peeves. Now, I'm going to see if you remember what your pet peeve has been this week.
My pet peeve.
I'm
sick and tired of hearing people use the F word. I mean, they use it just like it's just in the language, and that's what we should do. I think it's awful that you hear these people using it constantly.
Well, Bob, when I grew up, boy, you didn't say that. I mean, that was the offensive word right there. That was highly
It
offensive.
still is. I mean, I don't know why that people have to think they have to use it.
Well, Bob, and again, nowadays, even in mixed company, hey, when I was growing up, you didn't use that word. I mean, now you heard it, but it's a bad word, and even the guys didn't throw it around too much. But you might have heard it amongst guys, but you didn't hear it around women. You know what I'm saying? And now, Bob, hey, I hear it just as much from women as I do.
Yeah, the women do it too. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, they don't even seem to know that. And a lot of people, I don't think, even know they are using it. You know what I'm saying? It's just become so common. Bob, you want to hear my pet peeve?
Yes, sir.
My pet peeve is these people this week, after Charlie Kirk has died, that have come out and just, bashed him, called him a racist, called him a Nazi, called him a gender hater, and all these kinds of things that again turn every bit of society against conservative people who have the backbone to stand up and talk. And now this week, if you listen to them, guess what?
What?
Oh, we got to dial down the record. We got to dial this down. Oh, nobody ever said that. There wasn't no hate on our side. So here's the deal. They spew hatred. They spew hatred at him. And if you listen to him, he was he was respectful of people. Didn't matter. I was listening to one thing that he's talking about. This guy come up and gay, and he was a gay conservative. And he said he didn't know whether he'd be accepted into the conservative party because he's gay. And I got, man, Charlie just drilled down on it. And he said, why do you identify yourself? He said, why do you start, I'm a gay conservative? He said, I don't go around telling people I'm a heterosexual conservative. He said, why do you feel the need to let everybody know? He said, you identify as that. I identify as just a conservative. And he was real nice. The guy really appreciated what he had to say. But you know what I'm saying, Bob? He didn't go after him because he plainly said we have disagreement.
He wants to use it, yeah.
Yeah, we have disagreement in lifestyle. We have disagreement on things, but we can come together on what we do agree on, and we're both conservatives. And he said, I, for one, want to welcome you into the conservative party.
Now, I've never heard you say that you was gay and you're conservative. Never.
Me? No, I'm happy, Bob. I am a gay, happy guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm a happy conservative. I'm not homosexual conservative. But again, I've got friends who are homosexual, and I disagree with that lifestyle. But one of the best employees I ever had was homosexual. And so, again, I can love them. I can, I want them to go to church with me. Where else they going to hear the gospel, So, again, I can do that, and that's what he was doing. But these people spew hate nonstop. And then when something happens, we didn't really say that. No,
you can't forget about trying to talk to them. They got that set. There's no reason to even talk to them. You can't make you change. You can't change their mind.
Bob, it's just pure hatred. It's pure hatred. But I will tell you this: I believe that names matter. Names matter. We used to, our last names we were identified by where we come from or what jobs we did. And, a lot of times they would name the children for who they were, all of those kind of things. And Charlie had named his group Turning Point, and I don't think he could have been named any better, because I really believe that his death is going to be the turning point for our nation, possibly the world. I mean, he's having a world impact. And Bob, I'm hoping that his death turns out to be something that just turns our whole world upside down,
Well,
brings people to Christ.
New England, Japan, all kind of countries.
It's unbelievable. Well, Bob, hey, today man, I am going down through stuff, and I'm just getting really frustrated, Bob, at all the fights that I've got going on. I'm hearing people, especially in this election time, you got people coming out and they're saying, oh, well, DHS is broken. DHS is broken and we got to fix it. Now, these are the same people that's been around for ages and they hadn't done nothing to fix it. And the people who are trying to fix it, you're having to fight the entire government. You're having to fight judicial. So, Bob, like this year, we had, I don't know what, I think they had $100 million going out of DHS. And everybody I talk to, hardly nobody even knows that. Bob, how do you have $100 million? And me and you talked about that on here. I think that when I first got up there to the Capitol, and you were up there at that time, and they had 32 million missing from the health department.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that was considered. You remember, Bob? I mean, that was.
Yeah, we gave them money
hands
to
on
the
deck.
county commissioners, and they never paid it back.
No, they didn't do nothing once they caught everything, and But at the end of the day, it was all hands on deck. It was a big deal. Now you can have $100 million going, and it's like, let's not tell nobody. Let's just replace it. Move on. And then you got all this abuse of kids being molested, kids being waterboarded, kids being put in wrong homes, and all kinds of stuff. And we're trying to fight to get that investigated. Not arrest anybody. Not just. How about if we just look to see, are these things that are being reported true? Are there kids that were waterboarded and they've done nothing at all and they covered it up? Did kids, and we already know kids were molested at Tulsa Detention Center, but shouldn't we know whether the DHS covered it up, OJA covered it up? We got some of the same people in charge right now, covering up child molestation. And here's the deal, Bob, knowing it's going on, doing absolutely nothing to stop it, covering it up so they don't look bad.
Okay, so tell me this. How do we know it? How do we know that?
Yeah, Bob, the feds come in and raid it. Now, Bob, you got to understand, for the feds to raid that detention center's in Tulsa, so it's run through Tulsa, and it's a collaborated state. So you got the OJA and DHS, and then Tulsa. For the feds to come in and raid that, they got to have a lot of evidence before they'll come in. Feds came in, raided it, proved it was happening. We had reports where they were told they did absolutely nothing.
Wait a minute. You said for the Senate.
Do what?
You said for the Senate. You didn't mean the Senate, did you?
Here's the deal, Bob. It's the Senate and the House. Me and Jet, so Shane Jet and Dana Perino, we put on a hearing almost 2 years ago, and the Senate would not allow us to even have the hearing at first. So they told us we couldn't have a hearing at the Capitol. And so I went across the street and got us a room, and we're going to have it across the street. I was like, that's fine. Y'all don't want to have it. You don't want to have that here. We'll just move across the street. When they found out that we were just going to move across the street, they come back and said, well, you can have it here. Well, then we decided to have it there, and then they come back and say, oh, but you can't use any of the audio equipment or video equipment or the staff. Bob, when have you heard that? I mean, when have you ever seen them have an interim study, but you can't use none of the equipment, none of the staff, no nothing. You can't use anything.
Never.
So that's what we had. We brought in I don't know, about probably 12 people, and they told their stories, and it was awesome, Bob. I mean, we had documented proof, and guess what? They did absolutely nothing. A year later, I come in and do a similar thing on these waterboardings on these kids at Tulsa Detention Center, and about 3 cases of where we had just astronomical, gross negligence by the DAs, by the court, by the guardian ad litem's, by all this family court system, and then kids taken out of homes and put into homes where they knew the abuse was occurring, and kept them from the parent that was actually the parent that was trying to keep them safe. In many cases, filing charges on those parents. And so we had all of that evidence. We put that out there. We tried to have a hearing, and man, we got shut down. So we're trying to do a grand jury right now. And again, we're having a fight. And in my opinion, the court system has I mean, totally went over the top, and are committing pretty obvious crimes, in my opinion. I spent last night, I was up till 2:30 last night, Bob, typing up a probable cause to turn in, and I'm going to turn that into the court system. I don't figure that judge going to be too happy when I say, well, Judge, here's the probable cause with you listed that seem to be obvious crimes that you've committed. You need to recuse yourself. You need to send this to the AG, but the AG's listed in there too. You know, he needs to recuse himself. It needs to be turned over to the FBI. I mean, that's what's going to have to happen. And again, we got all kinds of crimes being committed in these things: false arrest, miscarriage of justice, abuse of justice. I believe kidnapping. I think that we have an extortion case. I think we've got obstruction of grand juries. I think we've got witness tampering. You know, all kinds of things that are crimes. And I looked up the statutes last night. I put down every narrative of how each one of these acts, who's committed them, and why it should be under those statutes. So it took a long time last night. But Bob, whoever dreamed that you would have to fight like hell, your own state government, and again,
Well, that's the governor.
yeah, Bob, and again, I'm not pointing fingers at, I'm talking all of them, but mainly it's the governor, because it starts at the top. Yes, it's the governor who he appoints, covering up for who he's appointed. You know, and again, it's just mind-boggling when we talk about that. You know, Bob, I know that you know, when we come in and we had massive evidence on DOC that they were covering up rapes. And we have this doctor psychology that all of these rapes have to go report through. And she has all of these emails to show that she's been threatened with her job and wrongfully investigated. And that all these rapes and all this started with her job when she turned in that they weren't doing the rapes, that they weren't investigating, and that they were basically covering up the rapes. And Bob, you know, we helped her find an attorney, and, you know, put that case together with her, sent it to the AG, and that AG come back and said, well, we didn't find nothing. But Bob, they come into a meeting, to a hearing that we had, and again, we couldn't get, we couldn't get subpoenas to get people in there. We couldn't get a proper, anything done like it should be, because we couldn't get these subpoenas, and we couldn't get the witnesses that we needed in the room. Or even when we got the witness, Bob, you remember how their general counsel acted in there. She was just, you talk about terrible. I'm not answering a question. I'm like, you can't even answer what we've got a court order. We got this court order here. Is court order correct? Or I'm not answering, You remember that, Bob? She was rude. So here we have these government employees, and we got the AG who would not investigate rapes being covered up when we had massive evidence, would not investigate whistleblower when we had massive evidence, brought the AG's first assistant in. Who did you talk to on whistleblower? Did you talk to a whistleblower? Nope. You didn't talk to me. I'm the guy who put the report together. Nope. You didn't talk to her lawyer. No, you didn't talk to the OMES people who put together that she was a whistleblower. Just who did you talk to? Nobody. Nobody. You get up in front of the whole state of Oklahoma and you claim to investigate whistleblower, and you didn't talk to one person, and that was the testimony. And then we go over to the rape side. Well, rapes are hard to prove in prison because they're consensual. And I read him. I go, well, I was kind of thinking you might say that, so I had the language right here. Read him. They can't be consensual. There is no consensual sex with an inmate and the officer. You can't have consensual sex. If that person agrees, if the inmate agrees, it's still rape when that officer does it. And again, that DA sat right in there, or AG sat right in there. Well, it's not that easy to prove. Well, when they confess, it's pretty easy to prove. When they confess it, and they admitted they had had confessions, and yet nothing done. And when you say, who did you talk to? Because you didn't talk to the person reporting the rapes. You didn't talk to the person doing. Did you talk to a victim? Nope.
Yeah,
Did you
Jim, the
talk to
real
a
sad
witness?
part of it is they made that girl look bad.
Well, it made me look bad. It made us all look bad, like we were making the whole thing up. And then again, now when you come out with other things, oh look, Humphrey's just and people, well, the AG didn't ever find, and people don't know. Well, the AG ain't gonna find it because the AG never looked, and he admitted the only person they talked to. They didn't talk to any of our 40 witnesses. They didn't talk to any of the victims. They didn't talk to the reporting parties. The only one they went and talked to was their investigator, who we had alleged was lying about all this. And again, he went over and talked to him. Nope, he said he investigated. Well, there you go. Okay, no problem. That's what they did.
And the
again,
governor was well aware of all of that and did nothing.
well, Bob, here's where I'm at. This is what is getting me, and this is why I want to talk about all this week, because we're in election season right now, and you got all of these candidates coming out. Oh, there's major problems here. There's major problems there. Well, there've been major problems there for the last 10 years, and for the last 10 years, I've been raising all kinds of cane, presenting all kinds of evidence, got all kinds of solutions, and they are shutting me down. I mean, they're obstructing me. They're shutting me down. They're going after me. And now they're all, oh, well, that needs to be fixed. Well, you think, then why weren't we doing it 10 years ago? Why weren't we doing it 2 years ago? Why weren't we doing it this year? and again, whether it's embezzlement, we saw embezzlement from the director, about $90,000 a year that we know and we verified. They don't want to look at it, won't look at it. Nobody will go after it. AG won't go after it. None of our government officials go after it. We saw a purchase in a prison that he never went in, that he set up the entire legislature, $312 million. And Bob, that wouldn't even been, I would have said, wow, if we hadn't been telling them 6-7 months ahead of time, y'all, let's put on the prop hat. Let us tell you, you're fixing to get played. You're fixing to get smoked. You're going to end up buying this, and you will not have a choice. And Bob, it was exactly what we told them. By the numbers. We called it by the numbers. They did exactly what we said they were going to do. It is corrupt, and yet nobody will do anything. Bob, we got the DAs that I preached on. And again, these DAs are collecting DA supervision illegally, fraudulently. That's easy. We covered that before. But when you turn it into the AG, when you go up to the Capitol, guess what? Nobody wants to take on the DAs. Nobody wants to challenge them. Nobody wants to hold them accountable. And Bob, it's one thing to steal several million a year, between 10 and $19 million a year. It's one thing to steal that much money like they're doing. But in stealing that, they've hijacked the entire criminal justice system. And what they're doing is making those criminals go out and perpetuate continue in criminal activity to pay them. They're like the cartel. You go out and you do your criminal stuff so you can come pay us, and we'll get you another case so you'll have to pay us more, and we'll get you another case. So if you've ever studied about prostitution and that kind of stuff, Bob, these coyotes, these traffickers, these pimps, whatever you want to call them, they get these women strung out on dope. They get them in places and they charge them for their clothes. They charge them for their food. They charge them for their dope. They charge them for their
What about
housing.
someone that's out of state, have to play out of state and Oklahoma? How can
What's
that be
that?
right?
Do
Huh?
what, Bob?
They're paying out of state and have to pay the money the regular money. They're paying twice. So
Right.
how are they getting away with that?
Well, Bob, and that's the deal. And what I'm saying, it ought to be investigated. It ought to be looked at. All this stuff should be looked at. You do not hear me. Rarely will you hear me come in and say they are guilty. Now, I will say the DAs are guilty and dare them to come after me. And the reason I say that is because I want them to come after me so that finally we can have it out in the public eye. I want the public to see. Let's put it out there for the public to make up their mind whether it is.
Well, obviously, that's the reason they don't.
Well, I figure that's exactly why they don't, and I figure it's on all of this stuff why they don't come out. They just keep quiet, and JJ's an idiot, and JJ's doing this, and that's what they try to paint me out to be an idiot. But here's the deal: I may be an idiot, but I'm the idiot with all the documents showing that this idiot knows what he's talking about. And so, Bob, it's one thing to steal all that money, but it's another thing to put these people in a perpetual state where they can never get out of this. You make them owe money, you get another case, owe money, and you've got them going out there. And how are these people? You're doing nothing to change their behavior. So how are they going to make money? They were breaking the law coming in. You didn't change their behavior. You charged them $3,000 with court costs and fines and your probation fee, and said, get out there and pay this. If you don't, we're going to arrest you. Well, how are they going to pay it? I can tell you how they're paying it. They're going to go out there, steal more, sell more dope, or sell themselves more to pay the daggum courthouse. And again, that's a criminal cartel putting them out there to work. And again, I don't want to make it sound like all court system, all judges, but the majority of district attorneys are the ones doing this. And it is criminal. It is easy to prove. It is easy to find. It would be easy to prosecute. And yet we have an AG who doesn't have the spine to do it. He doesn't want to get crossways with them. We have a government who are so scared to death of their own shadow and really scared of the DAs, and they refuse to do it. And so again, what we see is massive corruption. Bob, we could walk down through the, Department of Mental Health. Bob, they're missing $90 million this year. I went out and called that way early in November. Here's what tickles me, Bob. You got either task force, you got auditors, you got all of these people, and they come out and, oh, we found this. Okay, you found this, but let me give you an example, Bob. Recently, the state auditor come out with some audits, and she said that during COVID that there was several, I think 60-something million, maybe, I forget how much, maybe 20-something, but several million that was taken from OMS. That OMS was missing that money. Now, Bob, I looked at that and I didn't quite understand. Maybe it's just me. I didn't understand where all the money went. It looks like you're just saying money's gone. Okay, well, here's the deal. That's all good and fine, but it ain't hard to say money gone. That's just like DHS. 6 months before it ever come out, I was like, money's gone. Where's the money? Where's the money? You ain't spending it on what you're supposed to. Where is the money? Now, that's not very hard. But here's what's funny, Bob. All that money that she's talking about missing, I turned it in. I called Mike Hunter back in COVID, called Mike Hunter, and I said, hey, Mike, I got a law enforcement friend who I've known all my life, who I have absolute trust in. who is a very high-ranking official in law enforcement, and he has met with me, and he has disclosed to me they are stealing millions on this COVID stuff. And I want to know, do you want to meet him? And I was leaving that message on his cell phone or on his phone. And hey, before I could hang up, he's calling me. Hey, can we meet right now? I was like, no, because we don't want to meet in Oklahoma City. We want to meet down there in Lane, Oklahoma. So we arranged a meeting with his investigator down here in Lane in my building that I'm sitting in right now. I'm thinking about an hour. Bob, we're in there 6 hours. I mean, you would not believe all the stuff that was told on that was going out of that warehouse. And that's what they were doing. They were ordering, like they'd order $10 billion worth of gloves. They'd get in 5, but they'd pay for the whole thing. And then where'd this other 5 go? And then they'd do the same thing, face masks. They'd do the same thing with, you remember that hand sanitizer stuff?
Yeah.
Remember all the stuff they was buying back in, Bob, by the truckloads?
Yeah.
And that's what they were doing. They were ordering, and in the state, you pay for what you get. You don't prepay. You pay only for what you get. So if 5 million come in, you're only going to get paid 5 million. When we get the other 5 million, we'll pay you that 5 million. But they were breaking protocol and paying for the whole thing, was my understanding. Turned all of that in, and it was in, it's massive millions. And guess what? Nothing happened. And now today we're coming 4 years later. Oh, wow, this money's gone. You think? I didn't just say money's gone. I told you who's taking it, where it was taken, how they were doing it, the whole 9 yards. And guess what? We ain't seen nothing. And now we got people coming, oh, look what audit I did. Look at this, look at that. Wow. DHS missing some money. I think it's 60 million. That is a big chunk, and I for one want to know where it went. But Bob, they never get down. Where'd it go? You're not telling me who's responsible. You're not giving me the information that they can go out and file charges. If you look at Swadley's barbecue, I sat on that task force, totally worthless task force. I mean, we did absolutely nothing. I found out some things. But Bob, we didn't do anything. There was no need in us having a task force. And at the end of the day, here's 3 people get charged on the private side. Nobody gets charged on the state side. Bob, how does that happen? Any moron would know they couldn't take the money unless somebody on this side gave them the money, and that somebody on this side, and I can tell you from what I was sitting on and saw, I would say the main instigator was sitting on the state side. The one who probably instigated the whole thing was sitting on the state side, I suspect. But again, guess what we get? We get 3 people on the private side, nobody on state side. Bob, if we looked at Epic, same thing. We get all this money on one side, nothing on the state side, not one thing on the state side. And here's what's funny, Bob. That's been almost 4 years, I think, at Epic. Well, I know it's been over 4 years because it was going on in the last election cycle. So 4 years, no convictions yet, to my knowledge.
How many directors have they had in there?
Huh?
How many directors have they had?
On the tourism?
Yeah.
Tourism, you had Winchester, he got barbecue all over him. You had, and again, don't forget, that's why Hart was snuck out the back door. That was that and COVID money missing, and I was told ARPA money missing. But those are why Hart got snuck out the back door and snuck over to corrections to continue his little spree. But here's the thing: you had Winchester, who again was tied right in on this barbecue that nobody ever went after. And don't forget, Bob, the minute he come out, he resigned like that. Like that. And again, nobody ever went back after him. Then you had Shelley Zumwalt. Now, here's what's funny with Shelley Zumwalt, Bob. She had a job over investments before that. So the state's investments. And she ended up through her office investing millions, I understand, in a company that her husband worked for. And it was really sketchy, Bob. It was sketchy. And so, anyways, um, she had that when Stitt appointed her over tourism. You know, it's the worst kept secret in the world, Bob. I mean, it's the worst kept secret at the Capitol. Everybody knew that had happened. Everybody knew it was going on, and he still appointed her, which is a real head scratcher. And then after she'd been there a year or two, then here it comes, bam. Oh, we found this. Well, you didn't find nothing. Lord, everybody else knew it. I mean, everybody knew that, you know. If you found it, you were Johnny come lately. You Johnny come late to the show, you know. Anyways, found it, but was unable to connect it because here's what you got to do, Bob. You got to prove that her and her husband profited or her husband profited. So you got to show a direct tie of profit to really charge her with anything. So either they did favoritism or they didn't do their job because they come in and basically told her she had paid what $20,000 fine, something like that. I can't remember, and she can't serve in another office for 2 years. Well, Bob, if you got millions, or even if you got $500,000 or $600,000, you pay 20 back and don't have to do anything for 2 years. That's a good day, as far as you know. I mean, most people can be like, "Hey, that's not a
Now,
problem."
what about the China deal? I don't understand that.
Well, here's the deal, Bob. You've heard me talk about broadband. Here lately, I've been on broadband because what we see is a bunch of this money being put in this very, very political board, very politically appointed, very political board. The people on the board apparently own companies that do broadband work. This money is coming in one dump, 1.3 billion. And if I'm not mistaken, on that dump, 61% of that went to that board. So you got the board giving themselves, they're awarding themselves more than 50% of that. Okay. They just had another dump, which is about 800 million. And we see the board getting 80% of that is what I think is what I looked up and
How
the
many
people
people
I'm
is on the
working with.
board?
Huh?
How many's on the board?
Well, I think there's 6 or 7, but there's mainly three that tend to get everything. It seems like from what I'm looking. And again, you know what I'm saying. What I'm telling people is the stuff that I'm calling out warrants investigation. You don't hear me go out and say I'm very careful not to mention names of companies or not to mention people's names. And what you hear me saying is, hey, this should be investigated. And again, I mean, just what I told you right there, 61%, 80%, that's some sketchy stuff if you serve on board, because most of the time, if you're serving on a political board, you can't give yourself that money. You can't take the money. Most of the time, that's public service, and you can't have any money to keep you honest. But here we see them getting 61%, 80%. Now, Bob, the other thing is, I've been waiting for quite some time, and we've talked a little bit on here about my internet and how I have so much problems with internet down here. So I had helped to get some internet down here, broadband in our area, and had done some things. So I was going to wait. I didn't go out and buy one of those Starlink satellites because I was going to work and get this, fiber because I want to be a part of it because I'd worked on it. So I got it, and I just recently, and Bob, when I say recently, I may have got hooked up at my house maybe a month ago, month and a half ago. I've been hooked up here at the building maybe 2 months, 2.5 months. So again, Bob, um, you know, I was all for that. I get on there, and Bob, this is no joke. I had one of those, not the Starlink, but I had another satellite. You know how you order internet through satellite? One
Yeah.
of them was cellular. So U.S. Cellular is what I had at the house. I had a little receiver. Bob, I guarantee you, U.S. Cellular's got higher speed internet through, Wi-Fi internet than what I've got on that fiber deal. I really believe with all my heart that it's much faster, and so it's very aggravating to wait and pay the money and to do away with all the. And Bob, it's when you do away with them satellites, you have to meet them. You have to get the satellite down. You have to do all the stuff to get out of there. Then you got to get your satellite and hook up, or your fiber in, hook up. Got to start paying all of these things to switch out. It's a pain in the butt. That's okay. Don't mind doing that to get better internet. But guess what? You get worse internet. And then Bob, I was sent some emails yesterday that would tend to indicate, and I've looked at them, and I believe it's pretty. It is worth investigation. It would warrant investigation. But Bob, have you ever heard of the Chinese company? They're called Huawei. Huawei.
No.
Have you've not heard of Huawei? Bob, a couple of years ago, they had this Chinese CEO, woman CEO, and if you'll remember, they kicked her out of the United States, and they kicked her out of Australia. Australia, they got her espionage. There's a big argument whether they had them dead banger on espionage or not. And so, anyways, they kicked them all out. Well, my understanding is that we in America said that because we don't want the Chinese, because this company goes directly back to the Chinese public, what is that? Chinese public something, CPC, Chinese Public Communist, something like that. Anyways, it's got the Chinese government, Bob. And so, what my understanding was, in the United States, they put out a lot of money to say we're going to do away with them, we're not going to have them, and they paid these companies to get different providers so that we wouldn't have no Chinese government in our, infiltrating our internets. Well, now I'm finding out, or it looks like that this company took the money and then didn't do away with the Chinese provider. And so, if that's the case, Bob, I want you to think about this. So, I've got a computer here. I'm doing off the phone because my computer fried the other day. I don't know what happened. I'm gonna have to buy a new computer now. My whole computer fried. So, anyways, my internet here, my internet at the home are all hooked in on the same internet now. Now, if this company does have Chinese, if they're ran by Chinese, if that's going back to Chinese, well, guess what? Then basically I've invited through them. I didn't know it. I never dreamed they had this, Yahweh. Guess what? If that is true, that I brought the Chinese right into my house, right into my office. But worse than that, Bob, and you've been a representative, guess what? I've got all of my records. I've got all my emails. So if they can get on my email, then they can get into my house computer. And if they can get into my house computer, they can get into the entire Capitol's and everybody who's hooked on the entire Capitol's computer. Now, that should be something that should alarm us. And again, how many people are on that? How many people does this serve? How many representatives are people affiliated with the government or
Have
affiliated
you
with
ever
other?
been to that? It's a building across the street, and it's where they have all your computers and everything. They can track people whether they're saying, like I remember, there was somebody from the United States was landing in China, and they were able to tell who was fixing to get on their internet. They told them not to get on the internet. They had
Right.
it done, but they were quite a while ago.
Well,
But
Bob, and that's what I want
have
to
you
get.
been to? I mean, the question is, have you been to that building and seen all that stuff they have over there?
Yeah, I actually ran a bill for them to, and again, we had some disagreements on that bill, and so yeah, what that was, they were going to put it all under Department of um, Public Safety, and there were several of them didn't want to go under Department of Public Safety, wanted to keep it that each one did their own thing. But what is that called? It's FESA something. Uh, FISA, I think. FISA, maybe. FISA, and I can't remember what it all stands for. But yeah, I've been all through that building, Bob. And yes, they have, again, I would tell you, Bob, you know,
Well, it's where you want to be if we're having an attack.
oh, yeah, it's got the underground deal. But, Bob, when we had 9/11 and 9/11 went off, everybody kind of had a knee-jerk reaction that we've got to allow our government to have a lot more access into our internets and into our business and everything. And I mean, they've got absolute access to all of that now. And now that we're learning, I'm almost as scared of our own government as I am somebody else's government. You know what I'm saying? And the more we study, we're finding more and more out that our own government may have been involved in COVID. Our own government may have been involved in some of these, setting up these street riots and setting up, violence and setting up the, dismantling of the police and all of these movements that we're now learning has come out of the George Soros and again they're showing this last riot. They've got two of the riders out there at Los Angeles, I think, have come forward and are ready to testify that they were paid riders by George Soros organization. And again, Bob, that's the kind of stuff that just ought to scare us all and make us start beginning to demand our privacies. And again, that's why we got the fourth, fifth, and all these amendments. That's why we got the first and second. So important that we stand up for our rights, and so important that we, again, Bob, I'm encouraging people, Charlie Kirk could be an example to every one of us
Well,
of how to
speaking of Charlie
stand up.
Kirk, can we? You got time to talk about that just for a little bit?
Yeah, Bob. My
Well, here's the
thing
thing.
with you,
I don't understand. They say that putting that rifle back together or taking it apart or putting it together takes time. That's a real quick deal you do. So basically, they're saying that he took his gun apart, his rifle apart, run across that place, drop down, run over there to the weeds, and then put it all back together again.
yeah, Bob, and
That
right
makes
now
no
I think
sense. That
I think they're studying on the angle of whether he had assistance, whether there was multiple going on right there. You got people talking about what an easy shot that was. I'm not going to say it's an impossible shot. I shoot quite a bit. I'm pretty okay. I wouldn't say super proficient. I watch guys shoot 1,000 yards. It just blows my mind. But here's the thing. That's a tough shot. I don't care who you are. It's a tough shot. It's not about the ballistics or the gun. Any gun I got at the house could probably, not any gun, but all my rifles could shoot that distance. The ammo I have, I can shoot that distance. But here's the
but can
deal.
you take them apart within seconds?
Yeah,
People
that's
here
where
supposedly they can't do it on this type of gun.
right, and it's according to what kind of gun and how difficult it is to take apart. But Bob, when you're shooting prone, I got no fat belly. I can't hardly get down in prone and shoot. But if you have a tripod, you can. I didn't see whether he had a tripod, but shooting prone, I just not a comfortable place for me to shoot from. And then to shoot into the, to the area, yeah. But to shoot that, that small of area, if that's what he was aiming for, again, it's not an impossible shot, but it is a difficult shot to shoot. And then, like you say, to get on there, get off of there, know where they were going to be set up. There's a lot of questions that have to be asked in this thing. Something that catches my eye, Bob.
What's that?
Have you been hearing that he was living with this transgender, and so
That guy,
apparently
yeah, the
he
guy
had a
killed, yeah.
relationship with
I didn't know
transgender.
he was living with, but I didn't know that was his boyfriend.
No,
Girlfriend.
I think that they had a relationship. So here's the thing, Bob. How much do you think that transgenders make up the population of the United States?
I never thought it'd be less than 1%.
So it's almost 1%. It's a little less than 1%, what I understand. Now, Bob, you take the last 10, 12 shootings.
Every murder has been tied to that.
Guess what? Every one of them have been transgender, and now here we have another, maybe not transgender, but tied to transgender. What is the likelihood? I wish somebody would do a statistical analysis on what is the likelihood that less than 1% of the population can be involved in 100% of the shootings. Now, what is that? That's like some upside down anomaly happening. And so again, we start studying the ties back and who's actually funding or driving these people. We see that the shooter that shot Trump the first time was tied in with BlackRock and these others. We saw that they were investing in the market to turn around that. So, I mean, it looks absolutely, I mean, you'd almost have to be an idiot not to say that somebody was funding that behind that. When you look at this guy down in Florida and the people he had contacts with and all that, you draw the same conclusion. We're early into this. I don't want to jump to conclusions on any of this, but Bob, it just what I was talking about earlier, how you just mistrust. One of the things we've got to get back is the trust in our law enforcement, in our judicial system, because until we get that back,
With DLC, you can't believe anything they do.
well, you can't believe nothing DLC. But Bob, I've been up there to the court in Payne County this week. You've got a judge there that should never ever be in the case. The guy's mentioned on the grand jury. There is no way this guy that should be. So you got a guy here is the chief organizer of the grand jury. You got a judge over here that's subject on this grand jury. There's no way this guy ought to be over his cases. This guy has got a motion to disqualify on his case. Why can this guy, this judge, step into this guy's case when anybody would agree, any lawyer, any judge should agree, this judge should have nothing to do with this case, and yet he's over here issuing warrants for the guy who's organizing a grand jury where he's the subject of it. That's ridiculous. DA on the jury, on the grand jury, subject of issues, bogus charges, made up charges, issues that and gets a $1 million bond. And then the judge who said, I'm going to recuse from all the cases after a whole bunch of big shots show up, after everybody files in this case, all of a sudden he says, I'm not going to recuse. I'm going to go down there and sign, and I'm going to give him $1 million warrant. And then I'm going to get with this DA and this other rogue judge, and we're going to tell this guy, you cannot get out of jail. We're going to keep that $1 million on you until you give up your kid, and we're taking your kid. And without a hearing, we're going to put your kid back in harm's way without determining whether any of this is valid or true. Now, that right there is some sketchy stuff. And that's just a fraction of what we've seen in Payne County of how corrupt their courtroom and their court officials are. Massive corruption up there. And yet, guess what? You're not going to get any help from the AG. You're not going to get any help from the governor. You're not going to get any help from anybody. We're fighting the government. We're fighting these judges just to get a fair and honest investigation in there. And when you got that, Bob, I'm working on I probably 5 cases right now where we know that our judicial system put evidence in a box and burned it so a guy would be found guilty. And this evidence would have proved him not guilty, and they burned it. We've got David Fleener that, you know what I'm saying? We know that the medical examiner falsified it, testimony. We know that they intimidated witnesses. We know that they withheld evidence. Here's a guy, 29 years, sitting in prison. You know what I'm saying, Bob? You can't trust. It leaves no trust in our court officials. We have the DA stealing money, and until we take that on, correct these agencies, correct all this, nobody's gonna believe anything. We got to get our country back, Bob. That's what we got to do. We got to stand up. It's time for the American people. And I'll tell you what, Bob, I'm not for hating on folks, and I'm not for being cruel or mean to people. And as I said when we started, I praise Charlie Kirk for the way he handled, don't identify yourself as gay. Nobody cares. That's your business. What you do in your business, keep your business to yourself. That's what it ought to be. But here's the deal, Bob. We've got to get bold enough when these media are doing all of this nonsense, pushing all this hate, pushing all this woke, pushing all their agenda. You got to turn that crap off. You got to drop that group. You cannot listen to that group. Turn them off. Find you another station. Go find something else. We've got to send a message to those people. Sick of it. Tired of listening to it. When you hear it out in the community, how you've ignored it, don't be hostile, but just say you need to shut that crap up. That's crap right there. You need to call it out, whether it be transgender, whether it be women, transgender and women's sports, whether it be people calling the president Nazi, racist, all these hate things that have absolutely no evidence. We need to start calling them out. What evidence do you got? Bob, it's shocking. Every once in a while, you'll run into somebody who can say, well, he said this or he said that. And you go, well, you got to get the whole comment of what he said. But, most people can't even say that. Most people, I don't know, but that's what they say, And you know what I'm saying, Bob? I mean, they're calling everybody fascists. They don't even know what fascist is. Fascists trying to control everything. Fascists trying to tell you how to think. Well, who's doing that? Republicans are saying, hey, free speech. We don't want to censor you, free speech. Republicans are saying, hey, you have the freedom to worship. Republicans are saying you have the freedom whether you get vaccinated or not get vaccinated. Who is it trying to tell us you're going to do exactly what we say, and if you ain't, we're going to demonize you, call you a Nazi, a MAGA puke, or whatever. What side's doing all that? And it's time to call it out and not tolerate it. I mean, we got to become a nation. We're done. And I'll tell you, Bob, this internet has been a big part of it. People can get on there and say whatever, and there's no consequence to it. Used to, you call somebody a liar, you get your butt whipped. You know what I'm saying? Used to, you'd say some of this stuff, call somebody a Nazi or something like that. Hey, you fighting words. You better be ready. Keep your mouth shut or be ready to fight. And so again, I'm not advocating fighting. I'm not advocating violence. What I am advocating is that we have become, that's all you heard before, Bob. Tolerance.
Complacent.
Yeah, we become complacent. We become tolerant, and we become tolerant of the group over here was the one hollering tolerance. And guess who they are? They are the most intolerant people you've ever met. People who spew.
Would they be Democrats?
Well, Bob, they talk about hate speech. Guess what? Cheaters accuse others of cheating. Thieves accuse others of stealing. You know what I'm saying? Haters accuse others of hating. And that's what I'm seeing. And we've got to just tell them, shut up. We have to as a country. And I will tell you this, Bob. I hope as I started this today, I hope that we see the name of his group, Turning Point. I hope what we're seeing is that that comes true. I hope that
But they have no proof that the president is a socialist. No proof, because he doesn't do anything that makes him a socialist that he does, because the socialists tried to control all the businesses.
Well, Bob, we know who's pushing socialism. Hey, they don't even push socialism anymore. That New York. I mean, that guy's a communist. That guy's a communist. If you go to California, I mean, what is he a socialist or is he a communist? But now I will tell you this, Bob. I'm seeing where millions of people are calling for his resignation. And so, and that's what I'm saying. You're seeing a mass exodus of the Democrat Party. You're seeing, and the other day I was listening to some numbers here in Oklahoma on, it's like 67 had come over to the Republican Party, 60 had went to the Independent, and I forget, it may have been like 10 went to Democrat or something. So again, you're seeing a mass exodus of the Democrat Party. They're either going to Independent or they're going to Republican. A lot are coming to Republican.
Well, at our booth that we had just last week, county fair, there was a number of Republicans said we want it out. We want to switch parties.
You mean Democrats?
Yeah.
Yeah. Come in and switch parties. Bob, we've had that going on in Hugo for quite some time down in Choctaw County. It's been massive. I think all over the state it's been massive. And again, I think that people are waking up to see, that what's being said. If you'll listen to what's being said and then look at who's doing exactly what they're accusing others.
Yeah, they're accusing others. Well, hey, JJ, you got 2 minutes.
Well, Bob, what do you want to talk about for 2 minutes?
I don't know. You're the one that's the talker.
Here's what I would like to tell everybody is that, the one thing that Charlie Kirk meant to me was he was such a inspiration. He was a hero, a young man that was just wise way beyond his years. He read. We've got to get back to reading. We got to get back to learning and again, to educating ourselves to all the things that are going on. But what he taught me was I love to listen to debates. I love to listen to him to learn how to debate, learn what to say. And so I love to listen.
Well, he was never really rude.
No.
He asked them questions.
He was just a smart. He whooped behind him politely.
Anytime.
And that's what he was so impressive. But Bob, this is what impressed me the most. That guy stood up for his Christian beliefs, not in speech, in action. What that guy's life was, what that guy lived out, what that guy walked out in death, in life. This guy was a absolute inspiration on what a Christian role model should be. He didn't go around bragging it. He helped people silently. You're hearing all the reports of how he came to aid and helped people get in school and did all of this. To me, the inspiration is let's all individually go out and be those kind of people. And if we want to change our community and change our nation, our state, that's where it starts. Each one of us individual going out, being people who help people who are willing to listen, people who will express their opinion without hate. And that's what we've got to get back to. But we got to get back to this zero tolerance on this hateful and idiotic evil, this evil that has consumed our land. We got to start standing and calling out the evil and standing up against the evil. And Charlie Kirk did that. And so, today we've been talking about addressing corruption, addressing all these issues in Oklahoma. I'd say it's time that we see the people of Oklahoma stand up and demand that all of these grand juries that are being taken down, that all the corruption that we're exposing, that all of these state agencies, it's time to call out our state government and say enough's enough. And,
what's that representative's name that won that race against Wallace?
Yeah, Jim Shaw.
Shaw. Now he's coming back with some things that are really good. What he's trying to do, but he's getting beat up by it, just like you are.
Yeah, yeah. And well, the only thing that me and Jim Shaw agree about on 99% of everything that he's got. I don't like the one thing that Jim is trying to make it to where if you don't agree with Jim, then you're not part of the Republican Party and we're going to target you. We got to get that out of our head. It's okay to disagree. We live in different areas, so what's good for Jim's area may not be good for my area. And if I'm going to represent my area, I got to stand up. And so I would say, as a Republican Party, we got to quit this. You got to be like all of us, and we're going to decide what you need to think, and we're going to
Well,
decide what you're going
that
to do.
depends on what you're taking, what's going on.
Right. You just got to, and again, we need to be able to defend ourselves. And there are things that we should all agree on. I mean, I'm not trying to say there's not something that we
Well,
shouldn't all
JJ, I
agree on.
appreciate you doing what you do, all the work that you put into it. I mean, I know what you do, what you put into it, but the people don't know. But I know all the work you put into this, and it's very difficult. It takes a lot of time. But
It does.
I
Bob,
appreciate you what you're
I'm
doing.
going to Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, get to speak on Wednesday in D.C. on human trafficking and DHS abuse. So I'll keep y'all posted on that. Bob, I hope you get better. I hope you get to feeling well. And if you need anything, you give us a call.
All right, JJ, thank you.
You bet.